In today's class, we are going to be looking at pricing and support on AWS. So here are the modules objective for this section. At the end of today's class, we will understand the AWS pricing and support models. You will understand the different AWS free tiers. Then you will also understand the key benefits of AWS organizations and consolidated pricing. You will understand the AWS budget services and their benefits. And you also understand AWS Cost Explorer and its benefits. Then you will also know how to use the AWS price calculator. And at the end, you will understand the difference between AWS support plans, then the also benefits of marketplace. So for all these objectives, these are what we need to cover: AWS pricing, explore AWS billing tools, consolidated billing, AWS pricing tools, AWS support plan, and AWS marketplace. All these topics, they are important because when you get job today or you currently work in AWS, most people, when they get job, like, and even me myself, I'm a living testimony to that. At times, company may recruit you for a particular service, and before you know it, you are doing another service. So like me, I was brought in as AWS security engineer like 3-4 years ago in my current company. And I can categorically say that since the first day I joined the company, I was doing more of security engineering. I was doing solution architects, engineering, DevOps, cost engineering, different roles. And one of the areas that I've used this cost pricing is that whenever anybody wants to deploy something on the AWS cloud, the first thing that my manager will ask, what is the cost estimate? So you need to know how to prepare the cost estimate. You need to know how to know if you are going above your budget. And at times, when you go to the cost dashboard, you will just see different kind of costs there and different kind of amounts. So you need to understand whether the resources that you are creating or the resources that you create, whether they are being overutilized or underutilized. And one of the things, project I want you to have in your under your belt is how to create a dashboard for both security monitoring and cost monitoring. So without taking much of your time, let's jump into the cost. Our first topic is going to be AWS pricing. So AWS, similar to other service provider, we charge you for every service or most of the service and resources that you utilize on their platform. But there are some services that they are free. Either they are totally free or partially free, meaning that you either pay at a discount or you don't pay at all, or you use it for a free period of time, then after that you start paying. So whichever the case, there is AWS have billing documentation that any service that you want to use, and we advise you to first consult the AWS pricing documentation for that service. Then the pricing documentation will tell you whether the service is totally free, is partially free, or you can get a discount from using that service. So here are some of the free tier offerings that AWS have. The first one we're going to look at is always free. Anytime you use this set of services, they are free. They are not, AWS is not expecting you to pay for it. So, and the service might not be entirely free, but as long as you stay within the quotas that they designated as free quotas, then they will be 100% free. An example of that service is Lambda. If you are using AWS Lambda, which is one of the AWS compute services, the Lambda allows you, or AWS allows you to send to send 1 million free requests. 1 million free requests. So that 1 million free requests and up to 32 million seconds of compute time is free per month. So what that simply means is that the first thing you want to understand is what is Lambda. Lambda is like an EC2, but unlike EC2, you don't keep it continuously running when you are not using it. For example, let's say you have a website that you want to deploy. You have to create, if you are using an EC2, you have to create an EC2, and while creating the EC2, you have to determine the operating systems. And once you spin up the server, you have to configure it, then deploy your website on the server. Then you leave it continuously running. Either people come to your website or they do not come to your website. You have to leave the site running, and the server to have to be continuously running, because And if you turn off the server, if eventually somebody now try to visit your website, it will be showing them the website is not available because you turn off the server that is hosting the website. So what that means is that if you are running your website using EC2, that server has to be continuously running. Anytime that the server goes down or is not running, the website will not be visible. Compare that to Lambda. Lambda is behind the scene or at the back end. Lambda is also an EC2, but it's a server. But the difference between Lambda and EC2 is that Lambda, you don't have to turn it on or you don't have to leave it continuously running. In fact, you don't even need to create or to pick an operating system or to create the server. If you want to deploy your website using Lambda, you just need to create a Lambda function and use it to install your website there. Anytime anybody wants to visit your website, that is the time AWS will quickly spin up a server for you so that the website can run on that server. So immediately the person is not, or immediately if the person finish viewing your website, then the server that AWS creates, it got terminated. So you are not being charged for the time that nobody is using your website or nobody is running your application, compared to EC2 that either somebody is on it or somebody is not on your website, they keep charging you for the server as long as the server continuously running. So if somebody is using, if you are using the Lambda and somebody send request, maybe your application that you are running on Lambda, if somebody go to the application and run it for the first time, that is just one request. So AWS give you up to 1 million free requests before you can start getting charged. And if the compute service, which is the compute or server that AWS spin up for the Lambda, if it stays up to 32 seconds, more than 3.2 million per month, then they'll start charging you. But if somebody go to your application and they click on it to run, and AWS spin up a server, and the application run on the server, and immediately the application run, it got terminated. And if all those process or the entire process is like 1 minute, then you have up to 32 million minutes before you start getting charged. Seconds before you start getting charged. So in that case, Lambda can be totally free if you are not running more than 1 million requests or more than 3.2 million seconds of compute time per month. The second free tier is 12 months free. So this service, they are only free for 12 months. Only 12 months. So an example of that is EC2 instance. And if the EC2 instance, not the entire EC2 instance, just the T2 micro instance type. So if you spin up a server and you are using the T2 micro instance type, your server can be continuously running for 750 hours within a month, for every month, for 1 year. So let's say you spin up a server today and you do not turn it off, as long as you are still within 750 hours within that month, you will not get charged if your instance type is T2 micro. But if you go and use any other instance type, you will get charged immediately. Every 1 minute or 1 second, they charge you. So in a region that there is no T2 micro, then you can use T3 micro. So those ones are for 12 months. Then the next one is free trial. The free trial is, these are the service that AWS will just provide you, like 30 days free trial or 90 days free trial. And some of the services, especially in those security side, they will give you free trial. An example of that is if you go and turn on maybe something like Guard Duty, or you turn on Security Hub, or you turn on AWS Config, all those ones, they will give you like 30 days or 90 days free trial to use it. And if you finish using it within that 30 days, and after that 30 days, if you don't like it, you just need to go and turn it off. Because if you do not turn it off, they will start charging you. And there is a service I'm going to show you when we get to under cost that I turn it on. I think the site, I've forgotten the name of the service, but I'll show you before the end of the class. So I turned that service on just to use it for testing. And they gave me 30 days free trial. Then I forgot to turn it off after the 30 days. And they just charged me $500. But I have to send them a message that it's for training, and I forgot to turn it off after I finished the free trial. So they refunded me the money in form of credits. So these are the free tier services that you can use on the AWS. So all these free trial services that you can use. Now let's look at the paid services. So for the paid services, there are some concepts, there are some pricing concepts that you need to understand for the paid services. So the first service and the first pricing concept is pay as you go. The pay as you go concept is just telling you that when you turn on a server or you deploy a server, then you start getting charged maybe every seconds or every minute or every hour. So depend on the service that you turn on or you're using. So the pay as you go is a concept that is you pay only for the resources or service you use. They don't charge you if you are not using it. If you turn on a server and if you are not using the server and you turn it off, they don't charge you for turning it off. But immediately you turn on back the server, then they start charging you for it. So this means you don't have to provision for the resources in anticipation that they would be needed in the future, meaning that you only charge when you use it. Pay less when you reserve. So pay less when you reserve is just a concept to reduce your cost. And this happens a lot, especially companies that use compute services. And we discussed some of this we are doing EC2 under EC2 savings plan. I mean EC2 cost, EC2 pricing, under EC2 pricing. So this pay less when you reserve is AWS have a service called reserved instance. So what it simply means is that if you know how long you are going to use the service, especially EC2 and RDS, which use compute services, if you know how long it's going to take for those services to be used, for example, if you know that very assured that at least this server I'm creating I'm going to use it for at least a year or 3 years or 6 years. So once it is more than a year, once it is a year or more, then it is always advisable to go for the discounts. And one of the way AWS can give you discount is if you reserved an instance. The reserved instance is just like you have to pay AWS a certain amount of money, like, hey, this server, I'm going to use it for 1 year. And because you dedicated that you're going to use this for 1 year, then AWS will give you a significant discount. If the pay as you go, if you are using a service that is on demand, maybe you pay for exactly what you use. If you are to pay $1,000 for the instance for 1 year, because you are reserving it for 1 year, because you are reserving it, AWS like say, okay, because you are reserving this instance for 1 year, which gives AWS assurance that at least for 1 year, this instance will be continuously used. Then they'll say, okay, you know what, instead of paying $1, instead of paying $1,000 for the server, if you are using this for 1 year, we are going to give you 65% discount. So instead of you paying $1,000, then you're going to pay only $350, only $350. So you can see, and this $350, you have to pay it either upfront. That means you pay everything upfront, or you pay partially. That means you pay partially. So that means you pay some of them, like half upfront, and then the remaining you pay it monthly, or you decide to pay monthly. But if you pay upfront, it's even more cheaper than doing partial payments. So the next one is the payless with volume-based discounts. So what this simply means is that the more service that you use, the lesser you pay. An example of that service is S3. So this is how S3 works. When you create a bucket, S3 bucket, this is the bucket. When you create a bucket, and these are your data, you can send those data inside this bucket. So by the time you are sending the data inside this bucket, this time it is called when you upload data, or we call it transfer or ingest, whichever one. This uploading process, AWS will not charge you for it. That's when you are putting your data inside the bucket, they will not charge you for it. But they will charge you for storing your data inside the bucket. And whenever you want to use any of this data, you are going to make what is called a request or a retrieval. So they will also charge you for the retrieval. And what you are going to be charged is even more. I'm going to explain that later when we get there. But what the focus here is that you are getting charged for the retrieval. So this is how they are going to charge you. If you request maybe 1 million, your first 1 million, they may charge you 5 cents per 1 million, retrieval. Then once you are above this 1 million, they may say the next 2 million after this 1 million is going to be 3 cents. Then the next 4 million after this 2 million is going to be 1 cent. So the more volume you are doing, the lesser the price becomes. So if you are to do just 1 million and they are charging you 5 cents, that means divided the 1 million by 5 cents, that is 0.0000 something. Or for simplicity, let's just use 5 million here. Just for simplicity, I want to bring out something here. AWS is not this expensive, just for simplicity. So if you are requesting 1 million and they are charging you $5 million for it, that means for one, you are paying $5. So, and for this one, because the next 2 million, you are paying lesser amount, and the next 4 million, you are even paying more lesser amount. So if you are requesting, let's say you are requesting 10 million data, that means the first 1 million is going to be the first 1 million data is going to be $5 million. Then the next 2 million out of the 10 million is going to be 3 million. Then remain how much? 2 million. So the next 2 million is going to be, the next 2 million data out of this 10 is going to be 1 million each. That is 2 million, and this is supposed to be more cheaper. My calculation might not be right, but I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. That the lesser the service, the much the volume that you do, the lesser the price becomes. That's why companies tend to do much or huge volume compared to smaller volume. So the next one on our agenda is pricing calculator. So before you use a service, or maybe you are creating a project and your manager asks you what is the cost estimate for this project that you want to work on. Let's say the project is going to use, in the project you are going to use 2 EC2 with T2 large instance type. Then you are going to use, and each of these is T2, you need a volume, EBS volume of 2 terabytes each. And you need S3. You need S3 that is going to be able to store a volume of 4 million terabytes, 400 million terabytes. And you need one RDS, which you can store up to 60 million gig data. So all of this is asking to provide the cost estimate. Then you need to go to your AWS calculator and input all these requirements and come up with a cost estimate. So if you click here, okay, I'm presenting, you won't click. I'll just open a new page and type it there, calculator.aws. So in the calculator.aws, you can input all those figures and it will give you the cost estimate that you need. It will give you the cost estimate that you need for the service. So here, if you go to cost estimate, and remember we have 3 different services, so you have to pick your region. I'm going to be using Ohio. Make sure you are picking the correct region because region might make the price to be different. So the service I want to first calculate for is EC2. Then I'm going to say configure for EC2. So here you can specify how many number of EC2 and make sure that you are picking the right operating system. So how many number of EC2? Let's say we have 2 EC2 instance. And what is the instance type? The instance type is T2 large. So you can see T2 large. This is the T2 large. I'm going to select it. I need 2 of them. So that's why I picked 2 here. Then when you scroll down, it's going to ask you what's the payment option. Do you want to pay? Do you have a compute savings plan? You have an EC2 savings plan, or you want to pay on demand, or you have a spot instances. Let's say if you are paying on demand, scroll down, you see the price. You're going to pay $67.74 per month. So if you calculate this in year, if you open and show calculation, so per year, we are going to pay $135 for the 2 server. Now let's change it around. Let's say we pick reserve instance. If you click other option, you see reserve instance there. Let's just pick the default or the standard reserve instance and say we're going to pay for 1 year. And we are doing all upfront. That's why you have to either pick all upfront, partial upfront, or no upfront. So if you are doing all upfront, look at the price. the price is now $470 for the two services. So if you look at it here, 400 and look at it, we can write it down, $940 for the two services. Now let's go back to the on demand. So the on demand for the two services, this is per month. So if you do 12 times this, let me quickly bring my calculator. If you do 12 times the 135, you see how much it is now, 1,600. Compare that to, I think the first one we checked is 940. 940, look at that. So 1,600, 1,620 minus 940. You see, we are saving $680 for just two instances for 1 year. And company doesn't use one instance, they don't use two instances. You see company that use thousands of instances, or thousands or hundreds of instances. So you see how much they can save if they are reserving the instance instead of going for on demand. So those are and this is how you can use cost estimate. And if you are done with the savings plan, with the EC2 pricing, you can have safe and hard service. Then this is because we picked the EC2 savings plan. Then you can add another service, which is EBS. Remember, we also need an EBS. So you have to come here and say EC2 EBS. I believe EBS is under, okay, here is it. Configure EBS as well. So the EBS, I think I said we need 6. I can't remember the price, but let's just put a number there. So for the EBS, and don't forget to always put description and say this is the EBS. And here, how many volume of EBS do you need? We need just one volume. And what is the storage for the volume? You also need to select the storage, the storage for each volume. I'm using GP2, but the best option is for you to go for GP3, which is even going to save you 20%. So for the storage amount per volume, you can say you cannot get more than 16,000 gig, more than 16,000 terabytes. You see here, more than 16,000. Okay, more than 16,000 gig, not terabyte. So you have to convert this terabytes to you can't have more than 16. More than 16, you can't have more than 16 because EBS can only grow up to 16,000. Can't go more than 16,000 plus. So for terabyte is 16, but if you are using gig, you can go up to 16,000. And you can just fill the remaining information. Those are not really important. But if you come here, you can see the price. This is the price. So you can add this price to your service. Then let's view it again. You can see now it's added the two prices. It's added the two prices. Now this is the total. Then the third one, which is RDS. We're also going to charge for RDS. And the RDS depends on which of the RDS you want to use. Is it the RDS for my Oracle, RDS for my SQL? So let's go for RDS for my SQL. Then I'm going to click configure this. And I'm also going to provide the information. I'm just going to call this one RDS. I'm going to call this one RDS. So here, you have to also provide those information. How many nodes do you need? Then what is the instance type? Then the price you want to do on demand or you want to do reserved instance. So for this one, you can only do on demand. So if you click here, you're also going to see the price. For EC2, for RDS, you can reserve an instance for RDS. So if you scroll down, you can see then if you want to add what is the storage for the RDS, you want 100 storage, or you can do something like let's go for 200. Okay, it said the highest is 20 gig, so we can do 200. Highest is, I think you can have 100 gig. Let me see. Okay, highest is storage amount cannot be less than 20 gig here, so you can have 100, but it can't be less than 20. So you can have 100. Let me see what is the maximum terabytes. Okay, the maximum terabytes is 65,000. So say let me go for 64. Since 65 is going to be more. So that's maximum terabytes. So if you now go here, you can see the price, $15,000 monthly for what we pick. So you add this to your service. And now that we have all these services, you see for that application that I want to deploy, we are going to spend $211,000 for that application within 1 year. This is for 1 year. This is 12 months cost. So you can now share this either by downloading it in PDF, in JSON, or in CBS. CBS format is always the best so that you can edit it. Or you can just share a link with your manager. Just copy the link and send it to them so they can get the link and see the cost estimate. I hope that has been very informative for you. If you have questions, you can ask now. Otherwise, we move to the next topic. All right, let's look at different pricing on AWS, different pricing per service. If you are using AWS Lambda, as I said earlier, AWS Lambda is a compute service, which means when somebody sends a request, the compute service computes that request and send back a response. So the way AWS charge you for Lambda is that you pay only for the compute time you use. You also pay for the number of the requests for the function. So when you create a Lambda function and you store your code in a Lambda function, let's say this is your code. If somebody somewhere, maybe you give them link to this function and they use the link for the first time, that is one request sent. Then they charge you for that one request. So remember, you have 1 million free requests. So after that 1 million, any request after that, they start charging you for the request. Then the number of time that this server stays on while this person is using it, they also charge you for that time. And also remember that you have 3.2 million free time before they start charging you. So you can use a service called Compute Savings Plan, which is also a way of reducing your pricing for Lambda. So if the on-demand price, meaning that if you are not using this service, you are going with the default, if that costs you something like $100 per month, if you are doing Compute Savings Plan, it will be something around $25 to $35 per month. So that is how AWS charge you for using Lambda. And for EC2, you pay for the time that your on-demand instance are running. If you spin up a server, as long as the server stays on, then and it is not free tier, or you are not, or you have passed the period of free tier, then you are going to start getting charged. But the way AWS charge, let's say you turn on a server now. Let's say you turn on server 1 minute, then another server is using 59 minutes. 59 seconds. This one is 1 second. Let me repeat again. Let's say the first server, you have 3 servers. You spin up 3 servers. Let's say you spin up 3 servers. The first one is 1 second. The second one, 59 seconds. That it's now 59 seconds that it is running. And the third one, 80 seconds. So how they are going to charge you for these 3 servers is that this one that is 1 second. So if you server run for just 1 second and you turn it off, despite that you turn it off after you just run for 1 second, they will still charge you for 1 minute. This one, 59 seconds, and you turn it off, they will still charge you for 1 minute. This one that is 80 seconds, and you turn it off, they will charge you for 1 minute and 20 seconds. So what that tells you is that your first 60 seconds, whatever how many seconds you use within that 60 seconds, they will still charge you for 60 seconds. Then the subsequent one, they will start charging you for per seconds. So that is the first means that AWS is going to charge you for using their EC2 instance. Then the resume cost by using spot instances for recommended use case. So if you are using a spot instance, which is another way of saving money, and spot instance is one of the cheapest ways of saving costs on AWS. If the on-demand is $1 per minute, the spot savings can be 10 seconds, 10 cents per minute. So that's like 90% reduction. So when you are using this, then when the service is terminated and you have to turn it on again, then they charge you for that time. And you can save money or save cost for using EC2 by using EC2 savings plan, compute savings plan, or reserved instances. But AWS is now advising or recommending the users to use EC2 savings plan instead of this. And the reason for it is that the difference between the three, let me even give you the difference between the three. For the EC2 savings plan, okay, let's start with the reserve instance. The reserve instance, when you are using the reserve instances, you are limited to whatever you configure in the beginning. The reserve instance is of two types. We have standard and we have the conventional. Is it conventional or conversion? Conversion or compatible, sorry. Compatible. So the standard, if you are using the standard, you have to pick the operating system and you have to pick the instance type and you have to pick AZ, which is availability zone. Then the conversion or compatible, I believe you can convert either from OS, from Linux to, I'm not really sure about this, you can verify, but you can convert it from maybe from one instance type to another instance type. But they are not just recommending this again. So the one that they ask people to use if they are using EC2 instance is the EC2 savings plan. And the reason for that is because both the reserve instances and the EC2 savings plan, if you are using either of them, you save the same amount of money, maybe 70%. And at times, you save more by using this. And these have more benefits than using the reserve instance. Because if you are using RI, which is reserve instance, you cannot change the instance size. But if you are using the EC2 savings plan, you can change anything except the instance family. So what I mean by the instance family is, let's say you are using T2 medium. So from T2 medium, if you are using reserve instance, you can't change it from T2 medium to something else. But if you are using EC2 savings plan, you can change from T2 medium to T2 large, to T2 extra large, and you don't get charged or requested for an additional fee. But the only thing you can change is this T2. So as long as you stay within the T2, you can go from medium to large to X large or whatever you want. But you can't change it to something like I3 EN.13 or 24X large. You can't do this. And the other thing that you cannot do, because EC2 is a compute service, you cannot change from EC2 to Lambda. But with compute savings plan, which is this one, you can change from you can change from EC2 to Lambda, and you can change the instance family too. So the next one on our agenda is the S3 pricing. And this 3 pricing that I'm giving you, those are the major areas that we have challenges with pricing, especially the EC2 and the S3. Those are the 2 major things that you need to understand pricing about. So with the S3 is even more complex when it comes to pricing, because a lot of people, when you want to use a service, you are just too carried away just to use the service, and you are not thinking about the cost effect. Cost is very, very important to organization because they always have what is called a budget. Your manager, if they want to undergo a project, he will request for funding. And when let's say they give him, maybe he told his board of director or his manager that, hey, for this project, we are going to spend $2 million. And they gave him the $2 million. He cannot go back there. He cannot go back to them, despite the project has not finished, and say, hey, we budget $2 million, but now we need additional $2 million. It will sound as if he don't know what he's doing. That is why they want to make sure that even if instead of them requesting for $2 million, they may request for 2.5 million, so that at least they will have some rooms, some flex room to, like, maybe something unexpected occur, they have extra charges here. Initially the project might be estimated for 2 million, but they will request for 2.5 million just for case of any unforeseen circumstances. But they don't want to request for too much, because if the project is if you finish the project 2 million, then you now return this 5 million. the next time that you are going, or the manager is going to request another money, they may want to reduce the budget because you always return back excess. And so that's why they always want to get at least, if not accurate, but plus or minus maybe 10%. So that is why getting budgets before you do any project is very, very important. And with S3, there is a lot of ways that AWS charge for S3. The first one is your storage. Remember earlier I said that the way AWS charge for bucket, S3 bucket, when you initially send your data to the S3 bucket, they didn't charge you for uploading that data. No matter how much the data is, they will not charge you for uploading because they want you to use the bucket. So they trap you by making sure that you upload or making sure that it is free to upload your data in the bucket. But immediately you upload your data in the bucket, now, because you are storing your data in that bucket, that is where the first charge comes in, the storage charge. They will charge you based on the object size, how many objects you have in the bucket, and what is the storage class or storage classes that you were using. Remember when we discussed storage classes, we talked about standard under S3. We talk about standard. We talk about infrequent access. And we talk about infrequent access one zone. Then we talk about glaciers. So whichever class that you are using will determine your cost. We also contribute to your cost. And the more the lower the retrieval time, the higher the storage class becomes. For standard, the retrieval time for standard is immediate. If you need to get access to it immediately without any obstacle. For the infrequent access, because we are not using the data regularly, then you store it in a more cheaper way, but it's going to take you, the request time is going to take you will be more than the standard. So you have to account for that too. And the length of storage for each object per month. How long do you store the object? So that is the first under storage. Then also still under storage, AWS also charge you for requesting your data, the data that you store inside the bucket. They have to, when you are making a request to retrieve the data, they also charge you. You pay for that request output, but you don't pay for the input. Then when you are requesting for a data that you store inside a bucket, let's say this is your bucket, this is you, and this is the bucket, you store your data here. If you are requesting for that data, the data will pass somewhere to get to you, either through the internet, VPC endpoint, which is gateway VPC endpoint, or through the direct connect or VPN or whatever. Wherever the data is passing through, which is the network this time around, you also have to consider that cost too. So that is the part of the cost of your storage bucket. Then the management and replication. When you have your bucket, you want to make sure that nothing happens to your bucket. And because of that, you want to save a copy of whatever you have. You want to save it in another maybe location. So you have to also account for that. And those are the main ways that AWS charge you for using S3 buckets. Any questions so far? All right, if there's no question, let's proceed. So let's go to the next topic, the next slide. So you can see this is the volume discount pricing that I was talking about earlier. You can see that data, total volume transfer up to 45 terabytes of data, you pay this amount. And consolidated pricing for transfer data, you pay. Okay, this is another topic entirely. So here, remember, maybe I should have put this slide in another section. It's actually under organization, whereby you can consolidate pricing. So let's look at this. Let me explain it here. Let's say you have company A, account A, and account B, and account C. All of them, if this one use 10 million volume, and this one do 5 million volume, and this one do 6 million volume. Those are in between them, they have 21 million volume. AWS might tell you that, hey, see, if you use up to 15 million volume, we are going to give you a discount. of 10%. If you are paying for your AWS account by account, none of these accounts do 15 million. So none of the accounts is qualified for this 10%. But if you are doing volume discount pricing, meaning that if all of them are consolidated under one organization, then there's something under organization that we're going to discuss. It is called consolidated pricing. And what that simply means is that instead of this account to pay individually, all of them are going to add their cost together, which is now 21 million, and they will pay it as an organization account. So now, because they are paying it as an organization, they now qualify for this 10%. So AWS will give that 10% discount on the 21 million. So we can now see they can now share that discount among them. So that's the volume discount pricing techniques. And this is a more, just like my slide was not properly arranged, that's why it was kind of, but it's still the same thing, it's still the same explanation. All right, next, I'm going to stop that video and let me